Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Oxford University Press eSymposium 2020. Um, Thank you so much for coming and sharing space with us, this virtual space. It's so wonderful to be with you all. And today's session, we're talking about the concrete pictorial abstract approach in mathematics. And we're going to be using the new syllabus primary mathematics as a series to talk about this session. So the session's outcome for today are understanding the CPA individual, the connotations of each and every letter, what does it mean, and how do we sort of bring about this approach in our teaching of mathematics. Also, the benefits of it, and how do you incorporate the activities in this approach? Another very important aspect of the session. And lastly, just so that how does the NSPM series, the new syllabus primary mathematics series, ties in with the CPA approach? So these are the session's outcome. What is concrete, pictorial, and abstract? If you look at the screen and you can see that concrete as in manipulatives that they can feel and that the tangibility of it. Pictorial is a visualization in a diagrammatic form, as you can see. So if you can see the dice there, it's the three dots telling you that it's number 3 and the two dots telling you it's number 2. And then the last one is, of course, the abstract part of mathematics, which is the symbolic, the numeric representation of what the child has learned and what concept needs to be taught. So translating it into that the abstract knowledge. So what is CPA? So CPA was developed by Jerome Bruner. He's an American educationist and psychologist in 1966. He brought about this approach where he talked about the inactive, iconic, and symbolic steps in the teaching pedagogical teaching strategies of teaching mathematics and any other subjects. So he talked about the inactive part of it. He talked about the iconic, as in the pictorial part of it, and then the symbolic part, which becomes the abstract part of the language and the subject. So nowadays, the Singaporean curriculum, which talks about the mastery approach, and it talks about mastering mathematics using the CPA approach. So the inactive is the concrete, the iconic is the symbolic or the pictorial part of it, and the symbolic is the abstract part of it. So inactive, iconic, symbolic, concrete, pictorial, abstract. So what does CPA really do? Um, Not only does it sort of talk about the language and the pictorial and the diagrammatic aspect of it and the concrete manipulative part of it, but it also talks about the context. It ties in what of the child's prior knowledge, and ties that in also. So there's a lot more to CPA than just the concrete, pictorial, and abstract part of it. So what? Let's just go dive deep into the concrete, pictorial, abstract part of this. So the concrete part is the doing stage, where the child is using material manipulatives, manipulatives. You could have the multi-link cubes, you could have the 3D objects, you could have, so those are the concrete, the standard concrete material. Or you could have the non-standard, which would be the real life sweets and candies, or something that he can feel and manipulate. And on his desk, it's laid out and he's sort of, bringing it together. So if you're talking about 2 sweets and 3 sweets, or if he's using counters, 2 counters and 3 counters, those are the manipulative aspect of it, the physicality of it, where you're really using your hands and your, so the gross fine motor skills, all of these are sort of engaged, and the child is sort of discovering. So also in a way, I would just stretch it beyond and say that the heuristic aspect of it, where he's sitting and saying, okay, 3 sweets and 2 sweets, Sarah, I have 3 and Sarah's giving me 2 more, and then altogether I'm getting the 5. And then we move on to the part which is the seeing stage. Now that's the feeling and the doing stage, and then comes the pictorial part is the seeing stage. Now the seeing stage is where you are again connecting, making a mental connection between the physical objects that you got and handled, and you're sort of, making some sense out of it. So when it comes to the bar modeling and the number bonds and the flow charts and the fraction disks, so all these are now the pictorial aspect of the CPA approach. Lastly, way tucked towards the end is the symbolic, the abstract or the symbolic approach. So all that the knowledge that he's gathered and he's understood, now you are putting it down into a mathematical statement, mathematical fact, and the symbols. I mean, 5 is a symbol. The number 5 is a symbol. The language of 5 is 5, FIVE, and the pictorial part of it is that you've got 5 things, or on a sort of a number line, you've got or on a flow chart, you've got these 5 objects or 5 boxes that you've put in, and now you're translating it to a number 5 plus 2 with the plus sign also equals to. I mean, equals to also is something that you sort of explain to them in the new syllabus primary mathematics. It comes about in grade 1, where you are actually converting a mathematical story in words to a mathematical equation, and the word equation is initially introduced as a mathematical statement of fact, mathematical fact, a mathematical story. So yes, so that is the last part of it. But interestingly about CPA is that it is interchangeable. Just because CPA starts with concrete, pictorial, abstract, it doesn't mean that a teacher has to, bring in the manipulatives right in the beginning and then bring in the pictorial aspect of it, which is, you could have, let me just show you. So this is your, I don't know whether it's coming in. I don't think you can see my activities that are there. I mean, the cutouts that I've got. So these cutouts, which are the pictorial, the seeing part of it, that is something that comes in first. It can come in first, it can come in later. I mean, you can have or because the child has a prior knowledge of, say, in grade 2 or grade 3, he already knows 5 plus 2 is equals to 7, and you're going on to grouping and then regrouping. I mean, you could even start with the abstract part first, or the symbolic part first, where you've got the bar model sort of placed together, and then you go on to the manipulatives part. So it's interchangeable. So, and another important thing is that the activities that are there in the new syllabus primary mathematics, the activities, objective led activities. Now what does that mean? Activities don't come in as a side add-on to the lesson implementation, but it becomes an important tool. So you'll notice in the new syllabus primary mathematics that the activities come in right in the beginning. So the moment the child has these concrete or standard units that have been brought in, or the multi-link cubes or the counters, they've introduced it with a real life situation, or the icebreaker has happened, and then you bring in the symbolic aspect of it, and immediately the activity kicks in. So those manipulatives that he's using is actually an activity that he's doing. So you're engaging the child with the concrete aspect of it as an activity. So it's on the table, just 5 minutes of his time. He's manipulating the manipulatives that has been put on his table, and he's doing it as an activity. And then that activity, you're bringing in the symbolic aspect of it, where you say, okay, now let's just draw it in the form of a flow chart, or draw it in the form of a tree diagram, or a bar model, or a fractional disk, whatever, or a fractional strip. So you make them translate that on a worksheet, and then you say, okay, now that you've understood this, let's move on to the abstract part of it. So as you can see here also is exactly what I've been trying to say. So the activities that come in, of course, can be individual activity. I mean, the activity doesn't have to be a pair or a group work. It could be individual. It could be an entire class doing it together with the teacher on the board. So activities should not be considered something that you have to trudge and use an entire class time of it, but it is completely embedded in the CPA approach right through during the lesson, and it should be just taken as one of the most important cog in implementing a lesson of mathematics. So if you take a look at the manipulatives that we can use, the resources that we can use, I mean, it's even going to the, I mean, everybody knows that, you can go to the garden, or you can take them to the park, or you can go take them to the field or the auditorium and you're talking about planes, you take them to a big auditorium in the class or the classroom, and you're talking about the right angle triangle. So you're looking at the wall and the floor, and that's your right angle triangle. So, I mean, you're explaining a right angle triangle, and you showing them the wall and the floor. That's your manipulative. I mean, manipulatives, yes, there are proper standard concrete manipulatives that are there. Manipulatives can be anything and everything. So students who are exposed and can recognize a relationship posed with the different modes makes them critically understand the topic better. I mean, when we talk about correlating it with real life objects, this is an example. If you're talking about an angle or an acute and obtuse angle, and you're opening the window or the door to a certain angle, you're using a manipulative. So, I mean, when you explain them or teach them in this sort of manner, you are actually enabling them to perform better in the assessments, because the assessments are actually testing. A good assessment actually tests the understanding of the child alongside the knowledge and the formatting and the memorization. I mean, of course, multiplication tables, of course the child has to memorize what 7/8 and 3/5 are. So it's testing a lot of cognitive domains of reasoning and knowing and application. So all these cognitive domains, when he's testing it, when you bring in the CPA approach, the knowing and the reasoning aspect is strengthened. So if you take a look at further on, I mean, concrete we've got blocks, we've got dice, we've got counters. When we talk about pictorial, as I told you, there are diagrams, there are flow charts, there are bar models, and of course, abstract there are numbers and there are symbols. So by systematically varying the manipulatives and methods used to solve a problem, children can craft powerful mental connections. So you see, what is mental mathematics? Mental mathematics is not just, oh, 3/5 are, and there are 3600 seconds in a minute and things like that, and quick at the uptake. Mental maths is not that. Mental math is making mental connections of strategies, and that can only come when you're teaching them in various ways and using various strategies and tools and manipulatives and stages, and only then they can make mental connections. So math should be in the air, in the child's mind, and when he's mentally, so the mental math that he has to do at the primary level is where he's able to make mental connections. For example, he'll say, okay, I can see the number 5, and I have to, Sarah has given me 2 more sweets, so another 2, and I have to now add the 5 with the 2, and now this is, he's coming to the conclusion that the operation that he has to use is to put it together. And how much more do I have if Sarah has 2 and I have 5? Oh, I have to take away. So these are mental connections. And then, and how do I take away is his knowledge, where he says, okay, from 5, I have to take away 2 and I'm left with 3. So all this, and then he puts pen to paper and he says, 5 minus 2 is a 3. Kindergarten level I'm talking about right now, but just giving a very simple example. So these are mental connections. This is mental maths. This is mental strategies. Mentally, he's listening on to the conversation, seeing a mathematical conversation, and then deciding, okay, this is the operation I have to do. And for him to come to that conclusion mentally, he has to then decide, how do I do this operation? Again, remember it all, and then go on to the abstract part of it. So all of this while he was doing, wasn't he visualizing? Wasn't he thinking of Sarah's sweets and his sweets as sweets, as concrete material, and then symbolically he was saying, okay, I've got five this and two this, and then saying, okay, now I have to make into a mathematical statement and come to an operation. So it's completely, his thought process is completely CPA. If you look at the various abstract phases. So when this as CPA approach kicks in, another important part is that it lends itself for teaching maths for mastery. I mean, you're mastering the mathematical concepts. And what is mastery in mathematics? Mastery in mathematics means that it's the inclusivity, where you believe that all the learners sooner or later are going to come to the same level. So CPA completely fits into this thing, because you've got the symbolic aspect and the manipulative aspect and the abstract aspect. Sooner or later, each child will grab onto any of the processes and latch onto it and get it, because you're not just going in straight on into the abstract part of it, because you're giving him multiple strategies when you're introducing a topic, where and when each child will be able to grasp the concept. Initially you would know, but later on, sooner or later, you will know each child's customized approach, and you know, okay, okay, he's going to get it then and she's going to get it there. Then together, it's sort of, you have your children coming in at the same plateau. So the mathematical thinking and the fluency has to come in if you do everything in small steps. Make sure that you go dig deep. There's depth in the knowledge of the child. Just don't give him superficial knowledge. You really embed the knowledge deep down into him. And once you've understood that the entire class is now ready for the next stage, you move on into that. So teaching mastery means small incremental steps, like bite size steps. I mean, when you want to chew, you want to take small bites, chew it well, masticate it well, and then take it in, right? So again, math also, each and every small cog, I mean, you might have one lesson, but it might have 4 or 5 stages. Every stage is explained well. Okay, I'm going on from like fractions of I'm teaching them like fractions, single like with the same denominator. Now in the same denominator also, you will notice in the book that initially it would be with the denominator of 2, and then with 3, then maybe with 6, then moving on to prime numbers, maybe a 7 or an 11. You know, those numbers that they are not very comfortable with 13 as a denominator. So within that one lesson, you've got these bite-sized incrementalization, chote concepts, and moving on. Okay, now it's coming out to be, the answer is going to come out to be, a whole number and a certain fraction. Initially, just a fraction. So within that one lesson, but that one specific learning objectives, you cut out the small bite-sized pieces and move on. So yes, so CPA really lends itself well in teaching maths for mastery. So let's move on now. I mean, we all know that we have the NSPM component along with the workbooks and the textbook and the teaching guide. We have the activity handbook. Now, the activity handbook helps you to create your manipulatives and create the symbolic stage more so, symbolic and the pictorial stage more so, where there are these activities. So you've got your dice, you can use those dice as your manipulatives. That's the first stage, that is also there. And then you can show them the symbol, and before the symbolic stage, you show them the pictorial stage where you make it into a number bond. So that's there. And then you say, okay, 7 is equals to 3 plus 4, or 4 plus 3 is equal to 7. So what are you really doing? I mean, in the activity handbook, each worksheet, each page helps you utilize a concrete, the pictorial, and then the abstract part. So once again, here we have the concrete part where you will use this worksheet. This is from handbook 1, page 6. You'll have your dice on the table for each. So that's the manipulatives that are there, the concrete and manipulatives that are there. Then you're moving on to the making them make the number bonds. And you're saying, okay, I've got the 4, and then I've got the 3, and together it comes to be to a 7. So that's your pictorial part. And then you make them write down a mathematical statement for it. So the activity handbook really helps you, you know, uh, better the CPA approach with this series. Similarly, in the workbook also, you'll notice that the same CPA approach is even in the workbook. In the textbook, though, you all know there is a real life page, the chapter opener, you've got the standard and the or the non-standard units that are used, and you can see them, and it says in your teaching guide where it says, oh well, bring that out onto the table, the manipulatives, and introduce the concept with those manipulatives, where the children play with those manipulatives or interact or engage with those manipulatives and work their way. Then there's an activity alongside embedded within that introduction of that concept, and then you move on to the let's learn part, and the where you and then the practice part where the abstract knowledge is brought in. So the images of the colored blocks are given for you to make sure that you bring in those blocks. And if you don't have the blocks, bring in the Lego blocks. I mean, if you don't have multi-link loops, you can improvise with a lot of things, you know. Similarly, if you take a look at this one, the concept learned during number bonds are now translated to the base for addition as mathematical symbols are introduced. So number bonds are extremely critical. Number bonds and bar models, I mean, these are extremely critical in the CPA approach. And it sort of really is very crucial and critical. And it's something that is introduced so beautifully that it'll completely ease the child in, and even you into the concept. So here you've got the two swans and the cygnets, the babies, and you can see the 2 and the 3, and how it's becoming into a 5, and you know, so engaging them with various types of manipulatives, and then the symbolic, and then the introduction. So if you go on to the activities, I mean, you've got these square grids. Now these square grids can be made into a small corner in your room where you can just have it chalked or painted onto the side of your classroom. And so there's this math lab or a math corner in each classroom in a primary classroom. I mean, you can have a big square grid even in the playground, and I mean, you can take them there and it's painted, and then you can do so much over there. I mean, you can do skip counting for grade 1, you can talk about prime and composite numbers for grade 3 or 4. I mean, you can talk about square numbers, you can talk about number patterns is something that I mean takes you across from grade 1 to grade 5, or even later, I mean, even for O levels, or you know, so at various levels. So this square grid, don't think of it as a misconception or a myth that, oh well, manipulatives and I mean stuff is only for primary level. I mean, this square grid can even be taken to the lower secondary level, higher secondary level, and they can just have a mind's eye where pictorially, if they can see all the prime numbers that are left after you've done a sieve of Eratosthenes activity. So much that you can do. And here we've got the manipulatives, and you're talking about triangles, and the kind of triangles you've got rope, and you can bring in the thread, and you know, piece of paper, use a piece of bring in a piece of paper. I think the piece of paper is not coming in, but you know, bring in the manipulatives, and you tell them that carry on with the activity. What do you observe? I mean, if you look here, they're saying compare the area of the two triangles by placing the one onto the other, and what do you observe? I mean, are they exactly the same? Is it half of the other? Is it double of the other? Bringing in his prior knowledge, or weaving in the halves and the doubles and the quarters and doubling of numbers. I mean, in this one single activity, you can talk about doubling and halving. You can talk about exactly the same congruency. You can talk about similar triangles, which is that, you know, ratio wise proportionally, they're all increasing. All the dimensions are increasing in the same multiple or a factor, decreasing by the same factor. So I mean, it's entire, the world is your oyster as far as bringing in one activity and bringing in, weaving in so many concepts that he already knows, and then just bringing it together. Similarly, if you take a look at this activity again, you've got A, B, C, and D. I mean, yes, you're finding out the areas of the three triangles. You need to know half base into a height. You need to know that the base and the height are perpendicular to each other. And for C, the height can be outside the two widths. Either of the two widths of this rectangle can be the height of of C. And that same goes for A and B also, but the bases are all in proportion or in ratio. So, I mean, I mean, when you're talking about the bar model, and when you're talking about the bar model really helps very well. I don't know whether you can see the bar model. if I bring it closer to your screen, I've got it. So this bar model that is there, I mean, part and part whole is so important. I mean, how many parts are you cutting it into? So, I mean, here you're talking about the area of the triangle and comparing the ratios of the triangle. You're talking about the bases. I mean, the bases are maybe 2:1, and part C is 3 parts. I mean, bar modeling that is taught in grade 1, 2, and 3 level, where it is cut into parts. I mean, it helps you in geometry further on. I mean, it just takes you on to the next level. Similarly, here also you can see the activity handbook has the cutouts of these activities. I don't think you can see it on the screen. It's a sort of, the screen is diluting when I'm bringing out the cutouts, but it is in your activity handbook. You let them place it, and while you're talking about the shapes, you're creating a horse or a giraffe or whatever animal that you're creating. I mean, encourage them to have the cutouts ready from before, and just keep it on Ziploc bags and in front of the table. And when you're talking about parts of a circle and you're talking about shapes of semicircles and quadrants, you're even talking about a full whole and a quarter and half of a circle and 1/4 of a circle. Bring in your fractions, bring in amalgamate concepts in your teaching. Similarly, if you take a look at this particular um, activity, again, the concrete part of this is that you bring in the trays of cupcakes, bring it in class. I mean, or maybe have make believe cupcakes, or make it into an activity where you say, oh well, for lunch please bring in two brownies or two brownie squares or whatever, and then just bring their foods together and then do the multiplication activity. And then the flashcards for it is in the activity handbook. All you have to do is just simply photocopy or cut it out and laminate, and there you go. So I mean, these cards are all there in the activity handbooks. Cut them out and play games. The fractional discs are also there. The bar models are. I would like to move on because we're short of time. I would like to move on. These are the various activities that are there. I would like to just sort of talk to you about the the bar modeling and using an example here. If you I don't know whether you can read the question, but it sort of says that there are equal numbers of boys and girls in a school or an auditorium, and 108 of them leave, and when they do so, the girls become 4 times more the boys. Now, if the child knows algebra, it's very easy to do this activity, but or this question. But when it comes to a question, when it comes so early in stage, it's important to understand that algebra se pehle, it is more important to uh, take this into account using bar model. So you're trying to say over there that the two strips that you're going to use of the bar model, you're going to say, okay, these are the number of boys and these are the number of girls, and they are both equal to each other. And then suddenly the boys become 1/4 that of the girl, because the girls have become 4 parts. That means in total, how many children are left? There are 5 parts to the children that are left. So if you want to know that, you first figure out that if 108 have left, and because you know that the girls have become 4 parts of the boys, which are 1 part, that means 3 parts, equal parts of the boys is equivalent to 108. So you can make them then come to the part that if 108 is equivalent to 3 parts, that means 1 part, you're talking about rate informally, 1 part is equivalent to 16 boys or girls. So if 1 part is equivalent to 16, then 5 parts, because 4 of the girls and 1 of the boys, altogether is 5 times 16. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that using manipulatives, it becomes really very easy, because you are seeing that initially or both of them are of the equal number of strips, and then later on the girls become 4 times of the boys. That makes, you're just going to fold it in 4 equal parts, this strip, and you're going to say, okay, now the boy is just 1 part out of the 4 parts of the girls. And so you're going to say, okay, so then this just tells you that 3 parts that were cut off of the boys is equivalent to the 108 parts of the boys. And then you can just say that if 108 is equivalent to 3 parts, then 1 part is equivalent to how many parts? So, or 5 parts is equivalent to how many parts? And so just get the parts, 1 part out, and then if there are 4 parts, if you just want the girls, you can multiply by 4. If they want the total remaining, so 4 plus 1, 5 parts, and then just multiply and work your way. Similarly, if you take a look at the net diagrams have become so critical in now explaining them volume and surface area. So if you've got these net diagrams where you've got the cutouts from before and you make them folded, and the surface areas that are there, I mean the dimensions that you're going to discuss with them, you're going to sort of, bring in, and then the same thing of you can actually bring in a proper biscuit box and then make a net diagram of that biscuit box. So the manipulative part would be that you bring in the biscuit box, for example, like this, and you say, okay, this is my biscuit box, and now I'm going to make, and you've got a net diagram ready of it, and you say, okay, now this is the net out, so this is the pictorial part of it, and then get down to the business of introducing the formula of the volume or the surface area of the shape. So again, tying in your CPA with the concepts. So so as you can see here, lots and lots of more number relationships, sequence and patterns, tessellation, cut these out, these shapes, make them tessellate these shapes and see how they make a pattern. Even this coordinate geometry introduction that is there, how many to the right does he have to go to the flower, and how many to the left does he have to go to the next icon. You can play a game. I mean, bring in the Ludo, bring in the snakes and ladders, draw in a square grid on the floor, draw a square grid on I mean, you can go on to Desmos on the computer and show the graph grid and put in these flowers and icons when you're introducing coordinates. So something that so much that you can do. So bringing in the multiple strategies really works well with them. Now, for example, in this one, you've got this math journal activity whereby again you've got these 3 birthday cards that you've got to place these ribbons and these stars and these buttons and the flower, because you'll repetitively put 1 star each on each card, then again till you exhaust the stars, and then and so on for the buttons and the flowers, exhausting the buttons in 4 repetitive stages, and then the flowers in 5 repetitive stages, and also trying to tell them, hey, did you notice that in the 3 birthday cards you've made sure that you have equal number of each on each. So you've got in each birthday card you've got 1 ribbon, 3 stars each, 4 buttons, and 5 flowers. So you've equally distributed your manipulatives onto the birthday card. So repetitive subtraction or repetitive equal distribution, you're introducing division in the most beautifully effective way. So yes, I mean, there's so much out there that you can do, and important thing is it doesn't take much time as long as you're organized from before, and all these materials, these manipulatives are ready for the child to engage with on his table, on her desk, whether you're doing group or paired activities. Accordingly make the sets. So I'm running out of time now, but I mean, we can talk and talk about the various activities in the math journal and the mind workout and the activities that are there. But please understand that these are essential, crucial aspects of the series. And now it's not something that you say, okay, I'm explaining 2 plus 3 is equals to 5, but later on, if I have the time, I'll do these activities. No, now these are your main integral tool while you explain the 2 plus 3 is equals to 5. And so the core philosophy of Shanghai and Singaporean curriculum and approach is that everybody can be freed up by math, meaning if everybody can read, everybody can be very comfortable with numbers also, and they can achieve mastery and feel completely as if it's their own home ground. It's not about this myth about, oh, I can't do maths. So if you go in with a comprehensive, good methodology, there's no reason that any child is left behind. Robust curriculum, involve parents, involve the community, pupil interaction and engagement, teacher interaction and engagement, and for sure you have an amazing experience of mathematics. So in the conclusion, I would say that the same concept is developed further by going through the 3 stages, helps develop mastery through fluency, deeper understanding of concepts, and ability to think about the same topic in multiple ways as that we have been talking about. And in NSPM, the new syllabus primary mathematics encourages the CPM model by offering a variety of activities that engage all 3 phases. So we've got the textbook series, this is the second edition that has been brought in, completely tied in with the Cambridge curriculum and the national curriculum and the of Pakistan also. So both the curriculums are tied in. The syllabus matching grid is available for you to see the curriculum that it has got each SLO mapped onto wherever it is approached in all the books. We've got the workbooks, which are both workbook 3A and 3B, and lots of practice for formative assessment for learning and assessment of learning, completely tied in. We've got the teaching resource guides, which are very comprehensive. It has customized lesson plans, each and every lesson plan, each and every unit and lesson has got an individual lesson plan. Everything is laid out for you. The manipulatives examples have been given to you, when to use where. The scheme of work in a tabulated form is also there. This distribution of your time, everything is mapped on for you. You just have to go out there. The activity handbook has the cutouts and the shapes and the worksheets that you need for the activities. All you have to do is either cut it out and laminate or photocopy it and laminate, entirely to your benefit, to sort of make your experience and your students' experience a most beautiful, enriching and effective experience of learning and understanding mathematics. So now I will take your questions. I hope we can engage in a conversation now, and I would love to hear your thoughts also, and not just your queries in this particular session of ours today. Thank you.